Hi, I'm Josh Jenkins from Scientific Anglers, and I'm going to go over how a fly line is constructed and how that construction determines the environment it's intended to be used in. All fly lines start with a core, and the core is what gives the fly line strength. At Scientific Anglers, we use three different varieties of core. We use a braided multifilament for cold water environments, monocore primarily for clear lines, and what we call tropicore for the hottest environments. On top of that core, we apply a proprietary primer that basically helps the core stick to the coating, and that stick is essential to creating the most durable fly lines on the planet. Over top of that primed core, we apply a plastic coating, and that's how we create the taper in the fly line. And that taper is ultimately going to determine how the fly line casts and delivers a fly. At Scientific Anglers, we use three different kinds of coatings. We have one for cold water environments, one for moderate environments, and one for tropical environments. To those three coatings, we can include different additives to get different characteristics out of the fly line. We can include things like microballoons, which make the line float, and tungsten powder, which makes it sink. And depending on how much of that we incorporate into the coating, we can get different levels of float and different sink rates. We can also include things like pigment to identify different areas of the line. And all of our slickness technologies, AST and AST+, are incorporated at this level, so they're present in the fly line coating from the core all the way to the outside. Once the coating is set, we can send it through an embossing process, and at Scientific Anglers, we can apply two different textures to the surface of the fly line. We call them shooting texture and floating texture, and both of them are essentially there for two purposes. They reduce friction in the guides by reducing the amount of surface area that can possibly contact rod guides, but it also increases the surface area that water can contact, so it helps with flotation. Shooting texture is a little bit more subtle, so it doesn't make quite as much noise going in and out of the rod guides. And floating texture is more aggressive, so you can get the maximum float, but that's pretty much reserved only for the last 3 to 5 feet of a fly line. We can selectively use those two textures to identify different areas on the line, similar to how we use pigment in our fly lines. We have technologies we call TRP and ARP, which are basically a textured zone on an otherwise smooth line or an untextured zone on an otherwise textured line that help you audibly and tactily identify the back of the head when you're picking up for your next cast.